When Genesis brings in their own gods, it's time for Nova Grappler to bust out their gods. And these one punch a bit harder, and more importantly, faster.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to the last set review of Infinideity Cradle. We already talked about Ancient Feathers, Genesis and Nubatama, and it's finally time to take a look at the new Nova Grappler cards. And these are quite interesting as they stray away from the normal status quo of Nova Grappler that's all about restanding and empowering the units while attacking and at the same time cheating the game's mechanics as they can attack outside of the attack phase in all kinds of different ways. This time they take the approach of just outright brute forcing their way through the opponent's defenses and relying on front triggers and empowering those front triggers with all kinds of crazy effects, either from giving units different abilities or just making those front triggers all the more powerful. So without further ado, let's jump right into these cards and see what Nova Grappler has to offer for the clan and what this can mean for the upcoming support. And of course we're going to start off with the reprints, and the first reprint that we have is Stylus Hustler. And for those who don't know, its skills are Auto and Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. When your Auto Rearguard is retired by the ability of one of your opponent's card abilities, cost Soulless 1 and return one card from among those cards to your hand, return even when this unit was retired at the same time. So this card allows you to basically mitigate losses when this thing is on the field and you're up against a retire clan. And its second ability is Auto Rearguard Circle. When it attacks, this unit gets power plus 3k until the end of turn of the battle for each card in your damage zone. So as a reprint, this isn't really that valuable as it was a rare in the previous set that wasn't all too long ago released, so there's enough in circulation, but it does make a little bit sense with the new support for Nova Grappler as they don't really plus that much, so they can use all the recursions that they can. Only in this case it won't be that viable as your opponent can just snipe this first and then retire the rest of the field. So for that I can only give it 2 stars for a reprint. Then the other reprint that they got was the Grade 1 Drop PG that they also got in the previous set. That is Competent Mechanics Mechanic. And this is for me a 1-star reprint as it's just the Grade 1 Drop PG that we already got in the previous set. And it's just here so they have a PG in this set. So it doesn't really bring anything to the table than just a random PG. Then they also got all the triggers reprinted, and they're also going to be only 1 star as they're just generic reprint triggers. And they don't really bring anything else to the table than just having triggers for new players. Well, with that they got a new starter, but just like every other starter, it's gonna be only 1 star again because it's actually just a reprint with a palette swap and nothing else. Then they also got a new vanilla in this set. Sadly, it's once again the Grade 1 9k, and this makes the 3rd copy, so it doesn't get any better from here. So once again, still 1 star as we already have 2 9ks and we're definitely not gonna run a 3rd one. So what's the point? So now with those cards out of the way, we can finally take a look at the actual new cards, and we start off with the hero support, and we have this Grade 1 for the hero deck that is Rolling Extender, and its abilities are Continuous Rearguard Circle. During your turn, this unit gets power plus 5k. So basically it's a free Rocket Hammerman, as Rocket Hammerman needs to boost the hero to get the 5k and cast a Soul Blast, so it's a bit better than that. However, his following ability makes it almost useless in any type of deck except for the heroes, because for there it doesn't really matter, as the second ability is Continuous Rearguard Circle. This unit cannot attack rearguard and cannot boost units that are attacking rearguards. So this one can only allow you to go face the entirety of the game, even if it's boosting. In normal decks, it doesn't really help you a lot, as you sometimes want to attack the rearguards if you don't want to give them counterblast or you want to remove an annoying unit. So having this restriction is really awkward, and this isn't really justifying the 5k increase for free. It's not really that much. If it was way more, then you could say, sure, the restriction adds up for the extra benefit from the skill. But in the hero deck, it makes sense because the VR for the heroes does this anyway, so it's not really a restriction, and you just get a free 5k on the unit. It's not really that big of a deal, but it's a nice addition for the hero deck, and for that I'm gonna give it 2 stars. It's at least an increase to the power potential of the hero deck in its own right. Then another hero support card that we got is this Grade 2 Fever Rocketeer. And it's somewhat a combination of 2 cards, as its abilities are Continuous Rearguard Circle. During the battle it attacks the Vanguard, this unit gets power plus 3k, so it becomes a 12k 9k attacker, so it can hit over, protect, and axle the Vanguard. So that's pretty nice in its own right. Then we got its second ability, and that's auto. When it intercepts during the battle your Vanguard is attacked, cost Soul +1, and this unit gets shield +10 until the end of battle. So in some regard it's stronger but also weaker than a Warrior Chakram, as Warrior Chakram can get 10k shield value if you have 2 damage, but if you have more damage it becomes even better. But in his case it's only a 9k attacker that doesn't really do anything besides that. This one at least becomes a 12k attacker, and sure, the intercept restriction on the shield might sound bad, but then again, the whole hero deck surrounds about the fact that you're calling everything and that you can only hit face, but your opponent can also only hit face. So this thing is safe unless you're up against a control deck. So in most scenarios, you should be able to get off the intercept if you're not up against something like Narukami, Kagero. So for that, I think it's an okay 3-star card, as it makes sense for the hero deck and probably won't be run in other types of Nova Grappler decks. But maybe there will be a fit for him, as he's pretty versatile, as he has offensive capability, but also defensive, and that's pretty nice to see. It's a pretty fresh take on card design. Then next we got some generic support cards, and the first one I'll talk about is this grade 1 Unknown Demske, and its ability is auto rearguard circle. When placed, cost counter +1, stand one of your other rearguards and attack your opponent's Vanguard with that unit. And at the end of battle, if that attack did not hit, stand this unit. So this is a pretty interesting card, as it has the same mechanic as the whole thing with Beast Deity, but only this thing isn't restricted in any shape or form. So you can combine this with any other card, even though you might not run the Beast Deity grade 3s. So this gives Nova Grappler a little bit more flexibility, so you have more options available to you, and you can do some interesting plays where you can keep restanding the same unit over and over again in the early game, keep attacking your opponent's Vanguard until they get a damage trigger, and then decide what you can do with it. Because currently you can mostly only do it once, maybe twice, and with this card in the mix you can even up that number to 3 or maybe 4 times depending on how many resources you have. So it's an interesting unit, and for that I'm gonna give it 3 stars, as it does opens up some interesting concepts. Then next up we've got a grade 2 that is something that we have seen in Angel Feathers in the previous support, and that is Quatrain Liger, and its ability is auto rearguard circle. When its attack hits the Vanguard, cost Soul +1 and draw a card. So this is basically a carbon copy in the exact same thing as Doctoroid Ether. They have the same skill, the same grade, the same shield, and even the same base power. So we now got this ability in Nova Grappler. The interesting thing about this is that Nova Grappler can abuse this a bit more, as you can force it out in some case, as this can be the unit that attacks your Vanguard with all the Beast Deity effects. And your opponent, in most cases, wants to let the attack go through. Otherwise, you're gonna restand it for free and have another attack out of it. But in this case, if you use it with this unit, they actually not really want to let it hit, because you're going to get a free plus out of it. So they're in a awkward situation, in a dubio, where they need to decide if they want to give you a free attack or a free plus. And either way, you're going to enjoy the outcome of that. And even if they're going to keep guarding, you can force it out with something like Demske and all the other cards that can restand even more. So you can almost forcefully get that plus out of it. And you're not really using Soul all that much in most Nova Grappler decks, so you can even cheese some extra draws out of this card. So it's a pretty nice card that interacts with the mechanic of the clan, so I'm going to give it 3 stars, as it does open up some options for deck design. The next we've got a new grade 3 that is markerless, and that is Bugaboo Mammoth, and its ability is auto rearguard circle. When it attacks, if you have 7 or more units, this unit gets power plus 15k until the end of the battle. I'm honestly not a major fan of this card, and I'm only gonna give it a 1 star because it's somewhat stronger, but at the same time also weaker than Maximum Riser. It's weaker than Maximum Riser, as Maximum Riser just gets 10k just by calling it an Axle Circle. So with the Axle Circle, it's plus 15 or plus 20, and you're done. This one can become stronger as it gets plus 15, and it can be boosted. Maximum Riser cannot be boosted, so it can be stronger. But the fact that you need to have 7 or more units to get the power means in a lot of scenarios, this thing is vanilla and doesn't really do anything. Because if your opponent has a little bit of control, just bashing into your rearguards more than enough, this thing will just be a vanilla card that doesn't really do anything. And that's going to be in the case for most scenarios, because if you want to have this thing in your deck, you need to write a Axle grade 3 and then fill the entire board with this thing on the board to be able to use its ability. There aren't going to be a lot of scenarios where that's going to be the case. So that's why I can only give this one a 1 star, because even in budget builds, it's even more unlikely, because in budget builds you probably won't have all the good cards that can allow you to draw all your key pieces to fill out the board. At least consistently. Maybe one turn you're gonna get it off, but that's about it. Then next up we got a duo of 2 grade 3 trooper units, and the first one I want to talk about is Sword Trooper Equites, and its ability is Auto and Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle it attacked, cost, counterblast 2, and stand all of your power 20 or greater rearguards. This is an interesting ability as it's a bit costly on if you combine it with Incest Riser, but Incest Riser can only stand your Axle units. This one can potentially stand your entire front row and maybe even more, because if we combine it with the new cards that can empower your front triggers, and you're gonna combine it with front triggers to, if you get one front trigger off in the battle, you basically can restand your front row. But if you combine it with those cards that can empower those front trigger with an extra 5k power, that means any type of unit in the front row will be able to push over the 20k mark, so you can restand everything in that turn, in that go. So that means this Counterblast 2 can potentially stand 4 units, at least 3, and maybe even 5. And if you have those units in the back row that also attains power, then you can potentially restand your entire board for 2 counterblasts. That's pretty good, but it does require some setup, so for that I'm only gonna give it 3 stars, as it's quite wonky, but if you can manage to build a deck around it, it's a nice budget deck that actually has some potential. The next we've got the rearguard variant of the trooper cards, and that's Power Trooper Singh, and its ability is Auto Rearguard Circle once per turn when it attacks, cost, counterblast 1, and discard a card from your hand. This unit gets drive -1 until the end of the battle, and you perform drive checks for this battle. So basically it has a single drive check on attack. So for a counterblast, you basically get a drive check, but you won't plus from it. And it's on a rearguard circle, so you can spread those drive checks, and that's pretty nice. So that means they need to overguard for a rearguard potentially, which otherwise they wouldn't have to if it didn't have drive checks. If you had all drive checks on your Vanguard, they can just PG and remove all the pressure from it. By spreading it out, you can actually force more shield from their hand. So that's actually a pretty good rearguard skill. Sadly, it's on a grade 3, so it's somewhat limited in use with other cards. And the counterblast can be quite heavy, because normally counterblast would be spared for restanding units, and this doesn't give you an extra attack, but it gives you some extra value. And if you run a deck full of front triggers, that extra drive check, which can potentially be a front trigger, can mean more pressure and more shield from your opponent's hand than just outright restanding a unit. So it does have potential, but you need to place it in the correct deck, and it doesn't really fit in all decks for Nova Grappler. So for that, I gonna give it 3 stars, as it is a quite interesting card and it allows for some interesting plays, but it's not a go-to around solve everything that's gonna be included in every type of Nova Grappler deck, as most grade 3s are a tad bit better for their respective archetype or their respective deck. Then next we got another duo, but this time there are 2 cards that interact with the new VR Godhand Dragon, and we start off with this grade 2 Cannon Trooper Huskarl, and its ability is Auto Rearguard Circle. When your Vanguard Circle Fighting Fist Dragon Godhand Dragon attacks, cost, counterblast 1, and draw a card. So this is a nice addition for the Godhand Dragon deck, as it allows them to plus in some sense, because most of their cards aren't going to allow them to plus because they can dish out insane power, so they want to compensate it in some bit. So this is a nice addition for that deck. However, because it's a grade 2, it becomes a little bit awkward, as you want to use all your grade 2s to maximize your pressure, even though you might not get all the draws. As the moment you're in Fighting Fist Dragon, getting the pluses in that case is a little bit late, as you probably want to kill it on that turn and potentially on the following turn. So you won't be getting that much value out of this card. Also, the counterblast, you maybe want to use it for other skills. So for that, I'm going to give it 3 stars, as it's nice. It can be used in certain builds for the extra draw, but there are better options out there, and there are better interactions if you just want to go full aggro, which most builds most likely will hinge towards. Then next we have a grade 1 support card, and that is Gun Trooper Kleps, and its ability is Auto Rearguard Circle. When your drive check reveals a normal unit, if your Vanguard is Fighting Fist Dragon Godhand Dragon, cost, counterblast 1, and retire this unit. And your Vanguard gets drive +1 until the end of the battle. So now you can exchange a rearguard for an extra drive, which is pretty significant for Godhand Dragon, as you want to maximize the potential of getting front triggers. So this is quite a good support card for the deck, as having an 8k unit, which isn't really that strong, and you could already have used it in some scenario. So if you are lacking your triggers and you actually want to hit those front triggers, you can use this ability to maximize that chance, and hitting one front trigger in a God Hand Dragon deck can mean the world of a difference. So this is quite a good card for the deck, and therefore I'm going to give it 4 stars, as it's a bit better in my opinion than just outright plussing on your God Hand Dragon turn, as that's a bit late. And this is just right for that turn, as you want to maximize your offense capabilities. And you can do this quite effectively. And you can combine this with multiple copies of Gunner Troop Dragon and just keep amping the drive checks and just increase the amounts of potential front triggers you're going to see. Now with those cards out of the way, let's take a look at cards that interacts directly with getting front triggers in your drive checks. And we start off with Discrete 1 exclusive mechanic Stroh Guinea. And its ability is Auto Rigid Circle. When your drive check reveals a front trigger, this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. So front triggers will give everything in the front row plus 10k. But this one will get an additional 10k on top of it. Either it's in the front row or even in the back row. And this is what I meant with the grade 3 that could restand everything that is up to 20k or higher, as you can potentially give this unit enough power that this could restand with it. So there is potential for this card. However, besides that, there isn't really actually a lot of uses for it. Sure, you can put it in the column or in the front row to give more power, but it doesn't really do anything besides that. It just depending on drive checks, and just gaining more power from it isn't really all that special, as other units can just make front triggers outright more powerful. And maybe you want to use the grade 1 slot for more utility purposes to increase the consistency of the deck than just outright completely relying on front triggers. So for that, I'm only going to give it 2 stars, as it does have some value, but it isn't the most useful cards out there. The next, we got a grade 2 that interacts with front triggers, and that is Gain X22. And its ability is Auto Rigid Circle. Once per turn, when your drive check reveals a front trigger, you may stand this unit. So this is a unit that allows you to multi-attack with front trigger. So effectively, your front triggers now will also become a stand trigger. And if you have multiple copies of this on the field, it will become a double or triple or quadruple stand trigger, which is pretty nice, especially if you combine it with the grade 1 trooper that can sacrifice itself for giving more drive checks, because now you at least can use it in that turn to boost an attack, and then just sacrifice to have access to potential front triggers, which will stand the unit it boosted before, and then will hit on its own with the additional front trigger power. So that's a pretty nice addition. But after that, the card really doesn't do anything, and if you don't hit front triggers, it's just a 9k do nothing. So for that, I'm only going to give it 3 stars, as it's pretty reliant on front triggers, so it's really reliant on RNG, which makes it somewhat awkward, but it does have some interactions with all the cards in the deck, and will probably be one of the more used grade 2s, because having that potential extra attack is pretty nice. Then we have another grade 2 that interacts with front triggers, and that's Odd Puncher Selnoin, and its ability is Auto Vanguard Rigid Circle. Once per turn, when your drive check reveals a front trigger, you may have this unit gets critical +1 until the end of turn. The 8k body might look bad, but in actuality it does make a lot of sense, because you're not going to attack with this before you're going to attack with your Vanguard and potentially get drive checks. And the front triggers are always in an increase of 10k, or in some cases 15 or 20 or 25, at least always with 5. Meaning it will always make a magic number with this body number. And that's without boosting, of course, but with a 10k, it's 18k. With 15, it's 23, etc, etc. So it makes sense to put it on an 8k body, as having it on a 9k body doesn't really make much of a difference. But the fact that you can change a front trigger in a front/critical trigger is pretty nice, as this will amount a lot of pressure against your opponent. And especially if you combine it with something like Kick Typhoon, as Kick Typhoon can just restand it and have the extra crit pressure once again. So that's pretty nice, and it allows you to run 12 fronts, as you don't really lose out on the crit pressure at the same time. So that's pretty cool. And it also works in the early game, as it doesn't restrict you to having God Hand Dragon as a Vanguard. So that allows it to be quite versatile. But just like Gain X2, it's pretty RNG reliant, and it needs other cards to make it work. So for that, I'm only going to give it 3 stars, as you aren't really constantly getting value out of the cards. The next one, we got the main grade 1 of this set for Nova Grappler, and that is Starfighter Silver Fist. And its abilities are Continuous Vanguard the Rigid Circle, the power increase of front triggers effect revealed for your drive checks, get plus 5k. So front triggers will turn from 10k increase to the front row towards 15k increase to the front row with this unit. An important thing about it is that it stacks. So if you have 2 of these grade 1s on the field, it will get plus 10k. So front triggers will turn into 20k increase. But the important thing also about this is that it doesn't work in damage triggers. So when you get attacked, it will be normal front triggers. So it's mainly offensive. But this does give a lot of pressure because this is the main key card that allows you to empower your front triggers to a certain degree, which makes all this front trigger reliant rearguards all the more valuable and all the more playable. But it also interacts quite well with the grade 3 trooper card, as with this card, your front triggers will become an increase of 15k. And all 9k or 18k will jump over the 20k threshold to restand those units. So it has some places in that as well. But it can also be used in any type of deck, because any deck that runs front triggers can benefit from this type of ability, and you most likely will have room in your grade 1 slots. But it also has a second ability, and that's Auto Vanguard Circle. When its attack hits a Vanguard, draw a card and discard a card from your hand. So this one has the going second ability on top of it, but sadly it won't plus you, but at least you're going to get a cycle out of it. So it can increase the consistency of your deck in some regards. So overall, I'm going to give this card 4 stars, as increasing the front triggers is a pretty big thing. But sadly, the fact that his Vanguard skill isn't really that great makes it not somewhat ideal in the early game. And also, just like all the other front trigger units, this card doesn't really do anything if you're not drive checking front trigger, so you are reliant on the RNG factor. And then we got a grade 2 variant of this grade 1, and that is Fusing Striker. And this card has the exact same ability as Continuous Vanguard the Rearguard Circle. The power increase of front trigger effect, revealed for your drive check, get plus 5k power. So now you have another unit that can increase the power of your front triggers, which can really spiral out of control if you have multiple copies on the field. But then we have the second ability, and it's Auto Vanguard the Rearguard Circle. When placed, look at the 5 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 Fighting Fist Dragon God Hand Dragon from among them, and put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. If you put a card into your hand, discard a card from your hand. So just like the grade 1, I'm only going to give it 4 stars for almost the same reasons, as its front trigger ability is very RNG reliant and can result in a vanilla card. But unlike the grade 1 that has the unhit ability that can cycle one, this on-place ability is a bit better, as it helps the God Hand Dragon significantly, as you need to have God Hand Dragon on your Vanguard Circle. And by checking top 5 and having a chance of getting it, at least increase the consistency a bit. But also not by much, because you need to discard a card, so you're still losing cards in hand for that matter. So for that I can only give it 4 stars, as it's not an outright plus mechanic, and it's also a pretty RNG reliant card at the same time. But then we get into a card which is basically allowing this deck to stay alive, as we have Discrete Bengal, and even though it's a 7k body, it's probably the most important card in the entire deck, as its skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When placed, you may reveal a front trigger from your hand and put it on the top of your deck. 5 stars. I probably don't have to explain why, as this card allows you to use all your other cards more consistently. It makes those Gain X22 a lot better. It also makes that grade 2 that gains a crit a lot better, and it makes a hell of a lot better for your Fusion Striker and your Silver Hand grade 1, because all those cards will go from a super RNG perspective to we have some consistency going on here, but this little bit consistency can change the world, because hitting one front trigger will change a lot, especially if we take a look at the VR, because that's gonna add on top of this, as their VR is Fighting Fist Dragon, God Hand Dragon. And its abilities are Continuous Vanguard Circle, the power increase of front trigger effects revealed for your drive checks get plus 10k power. So on its own, front trigger powers is doubled. And then we have the grade 1 and the grade 2 Fusion Striker that can empower those front triggers all the more. So one front trigger can potentially increase your entire front row with 20k, or maybe even 30, or maybe even 35 for one front trigger. That's insane! But then we have the second ability, and it's Auto Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, cost counter +1 and discard a card from hand. Until the end of the battle, this unit gets drive +1. And if your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, this unit gets critical +1. So this card increases your drive checks for the cost of a counter +1 discard, so you cannot plus of it. But that's not really what you want to do. You want to maximize the potential of getting those front triggers, so having extra drive checks really works in your favor. And The fact that you can potentially have a crit if you went second is also pretty huge, as you're probably gonna run only fronts, and with that crit pressure, it's not really easy to say no guard against the opponent's Vanguard, as getting 2 damage in while you're then facing off against a wall of gigantic numbers is not really what you want to do. So this card has some amazing potential and can be a really good pressure tool, but still lacks in the consistency department, as it still is relying on an RNG element. Sure, we have Discrete Bengal that can increase the consistency, but we're relying on that specific card and a front trigger in hand. If we do not have those cards available to us, this card is just praising to the gods, which is ironic as it has God in the name, but if you don't get those front triggers, you're not really doing a lot of damage or a lot of pressure, and that's the problem of this card. However, it does get outweighed from the benefits. As you have with RNG cards, it's fine to have super RNG cards if the outweighs of that specific outcome is good enough, then it's a fine card. And in this case, it somewhat is justified. And for that, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. And yes, I'm not gonna give it 5 stars because it's not nearly enough. As you're wasting a lot of cards in hand and you're not plussing at all, and you're really betting on getting a front trigger. 1 front trigger can make a big difference. 2 front triggers is probably game. But if you get 0, it's probably game for you unless your opponent isn't really capitalizing on this chance. But if you're up against a control deck that can wipe your board, you're in pretty much trouble if you cannot recuperate the board. But there is an upside to this card. Even if you get 1 or 2 cards in hand, and it can be triggers, you can just place them in the front row, and by getting a front trigger, triggers will hit for 25k. So you do have that out of the card. But then again, you still need to get those front triggers, otherwise you're not going to do much. So that's why it's 4 stars for me, as that's probably the much I can give with the RNG element attached to the card. And that's about all the cards for Nova Grappler got in this set. There were a lot of interesting things, as we now have cards that manipulate front triggers in some case, or get their effects activated when drive checking front triggers, which is pretty interesting take on the whole drive check mechanic, as we don't really have a lot of cards that interact directly with drive checking in Vanguard. Sure, we do have some archetypes that do that, but not a lot of cards interact in this type of sense that you need to drive check a specific card or a specific trigger to activate those skills. And besides that, we also got some generic support that can be incorporated in all types of decks. We got some nice addition for budget players and some new cards for the hero decks, which in some sense is also a budget deck, but that doesn't matter. But all in all, pretty awesome stuff for Nova Grappler. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of all the cards that we got for Nova Grappler, as there is a lot to discuss, especially in the whole RNG department. If you're on that, it's pretty good, consistent, and this is a super strong deck, or it's just like, it's pretty good, but the RNG is hindering a bit much for entering tier 1. There's an interesting discussion to have in that topic. So have at it in the comment section down below. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters for making this video possible. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Timeleaf, and I see you guys in the next one.